One silly choice will lead to doom and you will die just in a minute. Hello you lovely souls out there, it's Lynn, and today I'd like to share my thoughts about the game Piofiore Fated Memories. So I'm gonna start with the setting of the game and then the characters, but I try to only mention information you know from the prologue or the promotional material. And then I'm going to talk about the tone of the game and some system mechanics, the art, like music and voices, and then I come to a conclusion. Let's start with the setting of the game. It's set in 1925 in Bologna in Italy, and it's a city where three mafia families fight for the power. Those families are the Falzone, the Visconti and the Lausciu. You play as Liliana, if you choose to take the default name. She is an orphan raised by the church, seems very sweet and kind and caring towards her friends. Someday she somehow gets entangled in this mafia fight, and it's up to you to find out why. And of course, while you're doing this, you can hook up with the different mafia bosses. So the game starts with the prologue. It has a very short common path of 2 chapters, and then every character route has 8 chapters for each character. Let's talk about the characters. I will talk about them in the order I would recommend them to play, but of course it's not mandatory. So I would start with Dante. He's the boss of the Falzone family, appears to be rather cold and distant, but you don't really know whether he's mean or maybe just shy. And his story is for huge parts about the story revelations about how did you end up in this mafia fight. That's why most people don't recommend it to play it first, but I really wish to know what the hell is going on. Second, I played Nicola. He's the cousin of Dante, and so he's also part of the Falzone family and their so-called underboss. He's definitely the flirty boy character, but also very polite. But the problem with those characters is you don't know, are they polite because they actually like you or because they're just flirty boys and just do this all the time. What really surprised me about his route, really distinct, strong plot. Not like Dante, that was connected to the overall plot and reasons behind all this, but he has his own things going on, and it was really, really exciting. Third, I'd play Young. You don't learn much about him in the prologue, so if you don't want to know anything about him, skip to this timestamp. He's the boss of the Lausciu, the Chinese mafia in the city. You will notice rather quickly that he's really dangerous and unpredictable because he doesn't seem to care about his life or use. So you end up in the situation where you can die any minute, like now. Or, and that's the good part of the story, end up being kissed by a really sexy man. Then Orlok, he's not part of either of the mafia families, but he in some way has probably something to do with them. And he appears to be very shy, but also caring and sweet. But that doesn't mean he's the typical shorter boyish guy. He still has very manly features and he's strong and reliable, but unless young, he's not domineering, but yeah, rather sweet. And whereas Young's route was more about love, Orlok's route was more about conflicts, of personal inner conflicts, but also very much about the mafia fight conflict. Lastly, we have Gilbert. He is locked until you have completed the other characters. I know that might be disappointing for some of you. He's part of the Visconti family, like the charming, lovable, friendly guy you really want to be at least friends or even better lovers with. And that's what makes his route so special, because it feels less dangerous than the other routes and more reliable. The main character has more freedom of choice and is allowed to live in a more realistic relationship compared to the others. Next, the overall tone of the game. The game is definitely on the darker side. You will see some scenes of torture, violence, and definitely death. There are a lot of death endings, like sudden death endings. But on the other side, and that's probably the price, if the stakes are high, you might die anytime, but you also get some sweet romance, some steamy romance scenes. So there's a lot of love and passion also in this story. And that's why I would say it's half plot driven and half character and love driven, so it's a really, really good mixture, I would say. But as I just mentioned, there are also bad endings. But these endings will be affected by your choice you make. Those choices affect the affection of the character and whether you fit their value system. So you have to impress them with, I don't know, your cleverness or whatever. And depending on that, you will get one of 3 endings: the best ending, the good ending, or the bad ending. The best ending is obviously the one you want to get. The good ending for most characters is also okay, or even really good. And the bad endings is where it gets really complicated. Because I thought bad ending would mean death. No, that's a normal ending in this game, so watch out for those. But I would still recommend to play even the bad endings and better all of the endings, because they're really, really well written and they fit the characters perfectly. They help you understand the characters better. If you're new to bad endings, I would recommend starting with Dante's bad ending because I feel it's least bad. Then go to Gilbert and then Young. And I think though Gilbert's and Young's ending are really sad and tragic. They're not that horrible, but Orlok's and Nicholas' ending can be really, really disturbing to read. Next to the art of the game, let's start with the voices. And like in most otome games, they're great. Many might recognize Gilbert's voice from Called Realize Impy, but also the other characters quite stood out to me, especially Young and Orlok, who really had a very distinct feel to the voice that really fit their character perfectly. Young's voice was more harsh and rough.
あまり泣くな。あいにく猫の言葉は理解できん。
Whereas Orlok was more soft-spoken and hesitant, really sweet.
なら、よかった。自力で立てますか?
Nicholas' voice was also really interesting to listen to because he had his flirty side voice you shouldn't really take seriously and his earnest voice. So it was really interesting to hear the differences there. And also Dante's voice was really calming and manly, so they all really fit their characters perfectly. Then the music did a same good job as the voice actors did. It really fit the atmosphere of the game perfectly. You have happy-go-lucky cafe house music and you have really pumped up music, so sometimes in some scenes I just stopped reading and started dancing because it was really fun to listen to this music, so it's really, really good and really complements the game. Lastly, the art. And what can I say? It's gorgeous. You have many CGs and almost for every chapter you have at least one CG. And what I really appreciate that even in the CGs, the distinct characters were represented in the color scheme of the CGs. Like Nicholas were more pastel and Young's were more rich of contrast. So it really fits the mood of all the character roots perfectly. Now to sum it up, what are my overall thoughts of this game? And as you might expect, I think it's a work of art. It's really a little masterpiece as a game. But you really need to be prepared for a certain amount of violence, torture, other forms of violence. You have to be prepared for sudden death, where one silly choice will lead to doom and you will die just in a minute or 2 minutes. So that can be really surprising and maybe it's not for everyone. So keep that in mind. And the other thing about the characters, as I said, they're mafia bosses, so they're not your shining white armor prince who's gonna rescue you and won't kill anybody. No, they definitely kill people, they torture people, they have their downsides, big time, as depicted in their bad endings or in some alternative routes. So if you want a happy-go-lucky romance otome game, that won't be the game for you. But what I really appreciate about this game is that everything fits together perfectly. Be it the voices, the art, the characters, the music, the writing, everything fits together perfectly and makes it for a really, really enjoyable experience and a really outstanding otome game.